as she opens her mouth, this spirit comes out of her. She is vehemently anti-Semitic. Who is the main funder of the cartel in Mexico? It has been the Iranian regime. The Iranian regime has been working for decades through Venezuela, up into Mexico, working with Hezbollah, bringing their cells into the United States through the southern border.
Welcome to the Sanctify Israel podcast. My name is Jonathan Smith. I'm your host today, and I have a very special guest. I think there is not many people that have the qualifications to talk about this issue more than my guest here today. Not only does he have an Iranian background, he also has a former Muslim background, and now he is a pastor, and he is the founder of Truth and Love Ministries. And today we're going to talk about the Iranian war and everything that's happening with the Iranian conflict, the geopolitical implications, and also the biblical implications that this conflict arises. And so I just want to thank you, Shahram, for joining us today. Pastor Shahram, it's such a pleasure to have you on once again.
Jonathan, it's such a blessing to be on with you. Thank you again for inviting me on and for being willing to cover these so important topics that need to be covered especially for the body of Christ.
Absolutely. And yeah, as my podcast, our podcast name is Sanctify Israel. And so the question would be, why Sanctify Israel? Why do we cover Iran so much on this podcast? And I would say that number one, there are prophetic implications that directly tie into the nation of Israel. But number two, it seems like Israel gets dragged into it, whether they want to or not. It seems like they are the I guess the one regime or the one nation that people want to blame the most when it comes to the Middle Eastern conflict and everything involved there. So I think this is very important to discern through, especially as people like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, the far left, we understand they're going to be anti-Israel, pro-Islamic to some degree. But now we're seeing people like Tucker, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, these people that are coming out and saying the same things the far left is saying. So Shahram, Pastor Shahram, if you can help us discern through this, I want to play a clip by Candace Owens to start us off. And there's just so many talking points that I think not just the left say, but also the right are starting to say too, that she really lays out in like 2 minutes in this clip. So if I can just share this clip with you,
Sure.
and then I would love to get your response on why what she's saying is very, very just wrong. So let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen with you. So she is on Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan is basically asking about, why is this war? Why is the Iranian regime collapse so bad in your eyes, Candace? Is basically, I think, what the conversation is about. So I'm going to play her response, and we'll go from there.
America wants a regime change in Iran is because Bibi Netanyahu is demanding it. And we also are completely done with the idea that this decades-long idea that we're doing it to spread democracy because we believe in international liberalism. There was no imminent threat to the United States when Trump made this decision to do what Bibi wanted. And I want to be clear here. This was not Trump's decision. It was Bibi Netanyahu's decision. And that is the reason that he did it. And we're very aware that Israel is dictating our foreign policy, and we would now like that to stop.
Okay. But you wouldn't just disagree, presumably, that Iran has been the main sponsor of terrorism in the Middle East through the Houthis, through Hezbollah, through Hamas. I mean, that's widely accepted and recognized. They've done
it widely accepted. No, that's just kind of
really. You don't think they have?
Has been a terrorist state. Okay, Israel right now is imparting a genocide and a Holocaust on the Gazan people. So I'm really over this idea like somehow Israel has the moral high ground and we have to get behind them.
I didn't say
because
that.
We got to go after the bad guys. So it's rich to me that people are concerned about Iran having nukes. But I'm concerned about Israel, who won't even admit that they have nukes, having nukes. While at the same time, they are executing a genocide and a Holocaust in Gaza that the world is watching. So who's the bigger terrorist is the question.
But when the leader of Iran says death to America, why doesn't that concern you?
Why are they chanting death to America? Maybe it has something to do with like killing 1 million Iraqi civilians, okay, because Bibi Netanyahu on a congressional stage and said there are weapons of mass destruction, and we took that to the bank, and there actually were no weapons of mass destruction, so we just killed 1 million. It could have something, I could be crazy, it could have something to do with our...
Okay, so it's
Wow.
every time I play a clip of her, it's like nails on a chalkboard. Not only
Seriously.
because of like her tone and her attitude and just her anger, you know, but the things that she says and says it so confidently. And to me, there were so many things that she laid out there. The first thing I want to ask you is, towards the end of the clip, she said, or when Piers Morgan asked, why do you think Iran chants death to America? And the way she flips the reasoning behind that, that's one thing. And then she also says the genocide in Israel, completely disregarding the genocide in Iran
Right.
from the Iranian regime against its own people. That has nothing to do with anything, apparently,
Right.
in her world. So there was a lot there, Pastor Shahram. Could you just elaborate some of the points that she's laid out on why she's so wrong biblically, politically, and all of the above?
Well, let me start with the spirit that I see behind it. First of all, I just like you, I mean, just immediately, it's like as she opens her mouth, this spirit comes out of her. She is vehemently anti-Semitic because you can see that the hatred of Israel and the Jewish people seethes out of her. It's not even veiled. It's not even, to some extent, where Tucker at times is more veiled with it or tries to, with his fake giggle, kind of cover it up. Uh, she's just like you said. There's no joy in her. It's just she's taken over by the Spirit. So let's start with her first claim about what you said about why would they chant death to America? Okay, so this is typical of the idea, and this is the same mentality of why would Arabs in Gaza want to kill Jews? Oh, it's because of colonialism. It's because they have stolen land, and that's why. Oh, hold on, time out. Wait a second. So let's go back. Islam and Muslims have been trying to kill Jews for 1400 years. Islam and Muslims have been killing Christians for 1400 years. So long before we went into Iraq, and look, even if you agree that there wasn't weapons of mass destruction and that was a neocon war, even if you were to think that, that has nothing to do with why the country of Iran. So first of all, she should get her geography correct because Iran didn't like Iraq. They were at
Right.
war with each other, different cultures. Most of the people in Iraq are Sunni. Most of the people in Iran were Shia, different goals.
So it's a false equivalence.
Yeah. In fact, over 2 million Iranians were killed in that war, Candace. So Iraqis were killed in regards to later, right? She's talking about later when there was the moving in because of the weapons of mass destruction. But how about before that, Candace, that in 1980, there was the war between Iraq and Iran, and Iraq killed almost 2 million Iranians, and most of these, young men, soldiers. So this conflict, the regime came in, and what's the first thing they did? Long before there was the Iraq-Iran war, long before there was the first 90, what was the under the first Bush was the first Gulf War, right? What was that time? And then the second Bush after 9/11, right?
Yeah.
Was claiming weapons of mass destruction. Long
Yes.
before that, on year one of this regime stealing Iran from the Persian people, they took the embassy. They stormed the embassy. They took 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. And every day they chanted death to America. Long before any of this happened, they were doing that. That is because fundamentally, within Islamic mindset and within the mindset of the clerics in Iran, they have to remove two elements. The number one element is Israel. Now, yes, they call Israel the little Satan, but it's because they believe that Jerusalem, that land, belongs to Islam, which of course doesn't biblically. And number two, by extension, America is a Satan because we support Israel. So All of this was happening long before she claims that this stuff was going on. So I just wanted to address that death to America has been a slogan of Islam and Muslims for 1400. No, obviously not America, but death to any Western society, any society that is built upon a Judeo-Christian foundation, any society that has Jews and Christians, they've been chanting death to those people for 1400 years. In fact, Muhammad, when he committed his so-called migration to the Jewish community of Yathrib in northern Arabia and routed the Jews and beheaded 600 to 900 Jews that had surrendered to him, expecting mercy. Within 5 years of this hijra, this migration, the Jewish population in northern Arabia was exterminated. They were either forced out or killed. How about that, Candace?
Right.
See, this is what they do. She is such a fool, brother, because she operates and she talks with authority, but yet the words that are coming out of her mouth are absolutely ignorant and foolish, and she has no clue. So clearly, Israel, Netanyahu, they're the bad, they're the
Right.
world's problems. That is inherently anti-Semitic. That's why she's talked about they're all a synagogue of Satan.
Right.
That's why she's used language that Stu Peters and Mike Adams and all these people like Tucker on the right are using now, Megyn Kelly, because they have hatred in their hearts and can't even see clearly. Now, we got to address the genocide thing. I know you want to get to that, but I am so sick and tired of this because
Yeah. Yeah.
remember earlier we were talking about how Candace and Tucker and these guys are way more dangerous than people on the left.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I have pastor friend of mine, friends that have been my friends for years, who when their theology changed or eschatology changed, they became more replacement or covenantal theology. They now are using the language, and this is political language. It's not spiritual language. It's political language that Israel has committed genocide and they're committing a Holocaust.
Yeah.
I mean, those are not, by the way, Oxfam, an organization that is connected to the United Nations, they came out and admitted that they were wrong in using the term genocide. We now know, based on the numbers, even from the ministry of whatever in Gaza, Hamas, I can't remember the Ministry of Public Affairs or Ministry of Information, that said that 67,000 were
Right.
killed, and
Right.
yet a large percentage of that were enemy combatants.
Yes.
Um,
I believe it
and
was
a
like
huge,
almost a 1-to-1 ratio, which
it
is
was a
like
1-to-1 ratio of enemy versus civilian deaths,
yes,
which
which
is
is very, very good and
very
it's
low.
sad, but it's
It's
really low. Yeah.
sad, but very low in urban warfare. Now,
Yes.
to your point, Candace, I'm sorry. Is there one post, one video, one comment where you came out and said, my heart is grieved that within 3 days, the Iranian regime killed potentially up to 90,000 people. Now, again, right now, the current number, the official number is 35,000. But we believe that once things come to light, that number is going to be double or triple that, because we don't
Wow.
see videos of what they did to the women. We don't see all the videos. We have only seen a glimpse of what has happened, because we
Right.
know that there was uh, several million people in the streets of Iran throughout 800 cities, 31 provinces. So if you look at that population and the percentage that were killed, that percentage tells you that it was higher than 32,000 or 35,000, which is a number
Yeah.
that the White House I think is using right now. So I'm sorry, who's committing genocide? Oh, where are you, Candace? In Syria with Jolani, the genocide against the Druze, the Christians.
Right.
You see, it is selective outrage
Yes.
because we got to villainize the Jews.
You're right, and it's the worst kind of false equivalence because like you mentioned, it's over 2 years you had a conflict in Israel for over 2 years where you hit that number 67,000, but that conflict was initiated by the other side. And
Correct.
number one, number two, it was initiated by the other side knowing that they could not defend their own civilians, yet they went into Israel and they slaughtered 1,500. It took people hostage. They had no regard for their own civilians. Where's the blame on Hamas? Why is it always Israel's fault for retaliating against that, strategically striking places that were turned into military bases by Hamas? Hamas intentionally puts their own civilians at harm's way, and no blame gets put on Hamas.
And by the way, the Iranian regime now is doing the same thing. They have moved their Basij, which is their mostly Arab militias. They have moved some of their IRGC individuals and equipment into schools, into near hospitals. They're doing the same thing. They're going to use their own people as shields because they don't care. They hate their own people. But again, Jonathan, you and I are talking from a place of rational. This woman or this spirit, same thing with Tucker Carlson, right? Well, Hamas is mostly just a political organization. No, they are a jihadist entity that are ingrained that their duty for their so-called God is to kill Jews, is to wipe out Jews. So you're right. There's nothing there, or even if it's said kind of like in a trite way. Oh, yeah. I mean, they did this, but Israel came out as committing Holocaust genocide. Now, again, if there's a genocide and a Holocaust happening in Gaza, the population continues to go up,
Right.
not down.
Right.
Yet she doesn't talk about the absolute decimation of the Christian population in the so-called West Bank, the absolute decimation of the Christian population in Gaza since 2005. Since 2005, the numbers that I saw was that there is only about 1/3 Christians left in Gaza. In West Bank, it's even lower. What about in Syria? What about in Iraq? What about in Jordan? What about in Turkey? What about in Pakistan? What about in these countries where the Christians are being run out? What about Sudan, Nigeria? No, she doesn't care about any of that because
Right.
it's Israel, it's the Jews, it's Netanyahu, and the fact that she gets platformed is beyond sickening. And the fact that many people are going to listen to her rhetoric and not even question it. As I said, when you got pastors,
Right.
intelligent pastors that I know saying Israel has committed genocide in Gaza, genocide, indiscriminate killing. Genocide happened in Iran because you have an unarmed population standing against their own government.
Right.
Not against a foreign adversary, against their own government. That's what's going on in Syria. Your own government is killing the people within the country. In Iran,
Right.
your own government is killing the people in the country. That's genocide.
Right.
And then to use the H word, Holocaust. Wow.
That
wow.
is the worst kind of false
Disgusting.
equivalence.
Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Just demonically inspired, in my opinion. And so, what else can you say other than she absolutely could care less about the Iranian people?
Yeah.
And of course, you know, the issue of her claiming that this is not America first, right? That's not an America first agenda. I know we were going to talk about
I wanted
that.
to talk about that. I do want to talk
Yeah.
about that. That's the next question, right? Let's putting Israel aside for a second, right? I know Israel is the one nation that everyone wants to blame for everything. Zechariah 12:3. I mean, before I
Yeah.
go that, I want to read Zechariah 12:3 for the audience, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know this verse. I just want to read it one more time for some people that don't understand what's happening prophetically around the world and their hatred for Israel. Zechariah 12:3 says, "It will come about in that day that I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples, All who lift it will be severely injured, and all the nations of the earth will be gathered against it. And then Zechariah 14 talks about the result of that as well. So what's going to happen as Jesus decides to take that into his own hands. But the reality is, putting Israel aside for a second, there is an argument to be made that what has happened in Iran, from the American standpoint, they'll go in and attacking the Iranian regime, that this is an American first perspective. This is an American first position. So, and actually, President Trump laid out the reasons as to why he went in and he attacked the regime, and it had nothing to do with Israel forcing anyone to do anything. But can you explain why is this an America first position to go and take down the Iranian regime that is currently hostile towards the West and Israel?
Well, let's go back to what I mentioned earlier. It started with the hostage crisis. There was never any meaningful retaliation against the Iranian regime for, again, taking 52 Americans hostage for 444 days, using it as absolute propaganda, bringing them before the cameras every single day, chanting death to America. Again, long before Iraq, long before the Bushes, long before. Okay, that's number one. Number two, again, as President Trump laid out, you can go back and lay out all the blood that is on the hands of this regime as far as Americans. Obviously, the Beirut bombing in Lebanon, then the USS Cole attacking our bases. But okay, that doesn't matter to this invalid of a person that is Candace Owens, with this type of demonic brain rot that takes over when you give into the spirit, this Jew hatred spirit that is there, that is so satanic. All right, so who is the main funder of the cartel in Mexico? It has been the Iranian regime. The Iranian regime has been working for decades through Venezuela up into Mexico, working with Hezbollah, bringing their cells into the United States through the southern border. So we can go after and try to work with the Mexicans to try to quote curb the cartel. We went into Venezuela to try to clean up there with Maduro. But who is the mothership? The mothership is the Islamic Republic of Iran that was funneling and funding all that, working with Chavez before Maduro, then if it wasn't for the U.S., they would have continued that. So this is an existential threat to the American homeland, because those sleeper cells that are right now, they estimate 10,000 or more that are within this nation, within our borders, sitting and waiting, they have been propped up and propagated by the Iranian regime through working again with the Mexican drug cartels, through working with Venezuela, and that being a hub of movement into the United States. Number one. Number two, obviously, we can talk about their proxies, because as long as Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis are there, we have bases that are in that part of the world that have come under attack. So, I mean, we can go on and on to give all the reasons. But here's the other thing. The Iranian population in the United States, which is one of the most highly educated population in the United States, is a huge contributor to the U.S. economy, to U.S. wealth, to the education, and because the Iranians have come in and they have assimilated, unlike many of the Arabs, unlike the Muslims that come from Africa or other parts of the Middle East, who have not assimilated, who are doing nothing but milking our system, defrauding us of billions of dollars like the Somalis in Minnesota. The Iranian population on whole, not every single one, but on whole, come in, assimilate, open businesses, do commerce, and are absolutely productive members of the United States of America. That diaspora, we call it, the ones who are outside the country, they know that this regime is behind the funding of even the Muslim Brotherhood, the funding, obviously, of ISIS, and their involvement in the United States. So it is in the best interest of the United States. Okay, yes, it helps Israel, obviously.
Obviously, right.
And the more that it helps Israel, it also will help the Arab nations, because how much does the United States work to keep the Arab nations safe? We basically are helping Saudi Arabia. We basically are helping Qatar. We basically are, I mean, our largest base is in Qatar.
Right.
So if it was not for US involvement there, the Iranian regime would have already taken over those countries, because their hegemony, Jonathan, is that they want to spread Shia Islam. And there is that sectarianism within the Sunnis and Shias, as far as, not that they disagree on Islam, but they disagree on who should be in charge, right? It's like two
Right.
alpha males coming and saying, no, I'm in
Right.
charge. No, you're in charge. So
Right.
they got the same end goal, but it's who's going to be the head, the power. And the Iranian regime for 47 years have said, it is our hegemony. We're going to be the ones who are going to spread Islam. And they would have already invaded Saudi Arabia. Look at the size of Qatar. Look at the size of the Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait. You could put them all together
Right.
and you would only have a blip of the size of Iran or the population of Iran. If we get rid of this regime, number one, that's less on us to have to be the police of that region. That's
Right.
America
Right.
first. That's an
Right.
America first priority. As
Yes.
long as that regime exists, and as long as that regime has built up their bull, forget the nuclear for a minute. Forget the fact that Steve Witkoff comes and says, in my third meeting with the Iranians, they bragged that they had 400 kilos of enriched uranium at 60%. They said that within a matter of a few weeks, they can get it to 90% and build 11 bombs. Forget that nobody covered. The media did not cover that. I mean,
Wow.
they should have led with that. That should have been
Right.
all over the news. Hey, here's who we're negotiating with.
Right.
Forget that. Their ballistic missiles, their drone technology, the drone technology that they've sold to the Russians.
Right.
This is all an existential threat, not just to Israel. It's not just about protecting Israel. What about
Right.
all of the rich Arab nations? So
Tucker Carlson, what do you have to say about that?
Tucker Carlson, what do you have to say for your hometown? Where are you going to go live? It's a wonderful society. So all of that, both protecting our homeland from the influence of the Iranian regime right on our border with Mexico and with Central America, number one. Number two, lessening our burden in the Middle East region because of the fact that we have to end up being the policeman of that area as long as this regime exists with its ambitions. And number three, yes, it also is supporting our number one ally, which is the nation of Israel. So
Right.
in all of those things, this is the best decision that should have been made.
Yeah.
It should have been made years ago. And again, none of that means that we are calling for America to be behind regime change, that we want America to pick. No. But it is absolutely justifiable to say it is time that we hit all of their assets and their infrastructure, seize all the funding of the activities of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, all the activities of this regime outside the country. They have committed so many political assassinations of Iranian American citizens.
Mm.
I can go on and on and on. So
Right.
that is America first. America first is not let's hunker down. It's kind of like saying, sorry, I'm talking too long. I'll turn it back to you. It's kind of
No,
like
no.
saying this. It's the mentality of churches. We're going to be a church that's only going to focus on us.
Right.
We're not going to go out. We don't care about anything out there. We're just going to focus on us. If we just focus on what's inside the four walls, that's been the mentality of the church in America. And yet the enemy continues to infiltrate the church.
That's not how the enemy operates.
Because we don't understand that at some point the truth has got to go out, and you
Right.
got to go on the offensive. And in this
Right.
case, this is not a new war. This
Right.
is finally us. It's like a bully hitting you, threatening you, challenging you for 47 years. And the
Right.
moment you punch them back, they go, "Oh, it's your
Right.
fault.
That's exactly what that is. That's
You
such a
did
good
it.
analogy. Yeah.
How could you? What did they
Right.
do to you? Hello, where have you
Right.
been for 47 years? Where have you been, Candace? You're ignorant
Right.
because you don't know how much damage the Iranian people know. The Iranian people inside and outside Iran know how much damage this regime has done to the world, to the
Right.
Middle East. By the way, here's one other thing that will happen. One other thing that potentially could happen is a free Iran that is going to be free of Islam governing it is going to then be a model for these other nations around it to go, hey, maybe we can moderate, quote, moderate. Not that I think there's a moderate Islam, but I think governmentally, these nations can moderate so they're not governed by Sharia, like in Pakistan, like in Turkey, like in Afghanistan,
Yeah.
like in Syria, and they can moderate, and perhaps it will shift the mentality of the Middle East. So all of those reasons we can articulate are actually in the benefit of the United States of America and our
Yeah.
survivability long term. And for no other reason is we have to stop the inflow of these terror cells into our nation. And Iran has been number one at supporting the infiltration of these sleeper cells into our country.
Yeah, man. Wow. So many things that you said that are so well said. And so that's a really good segue into this next portion, which is, okay, so the Iranian conflict is not over. So the question is, it doesn't seem like anyone's going to convince Trump of of that he did something wrong when he attacked Iran. And thankfully he's had moral clarity on that issue. Even though it seemed like he was wavering a little bit in the beginning, seems like he's come out and he's had some moral clarity. But so the next question is, how do we move forward? Do we continue pushing, and then what do we do after that? So I'm going to actually before we talk about that, I want to play a clip about from Tucker Carlson. And I know we're hitting all the we're hitting all the pundits right now. I want to bring up Tucker Carlson. He I think he knows he's not going to stop Trump or he's not going to convince Trump that he's doing anything wrong, but he still wants to convince the American public that the best thing to do is to pull out right now and let the Iranian people handle what's happening. Mujtaba Khamenei he just got put up as the new supreme leader, and so I kind of want to tie that into this conversation. So I'm gonna play this clip from Tucker, and I want to get kind of your take just to lay the foundation of what we should do moving forward. What should be happening in Iran from this point on. So
Sorry, Tom Cotton, putting troops on the ground, boots on the ground, whatever you call it, committing young American men to go die in Iran is not in our interest at all. And it would cause not simply heartbreak in the families of those killed, but it would cause potentially real turmoil here domestically and render already fragile social fabric. So where do you go from here? Well, get out right away. It's just that simple. Of course, it's also incredibly complicated. But the first step is deciding that we're leaving. You know, it's only been less than 2 days, but it's pretty clear that we're not going to gain anything more. And how do we know that? Because no one has explained what we're there to gain.
So that was an introduction to his monologue, which then he spews just nonsense about the temple and how Israel is really the beneficiary of this and how America has no benefit in being there. So my first question, before we talk about what should happen, you know, in the Iranian regime as the Iranian regime collapses and there's possible new leadership there, what would happen if America just pulled out right now? As we talked about, Mujtaba Khamenei now being elected the supreme leader or appointed the supreme leader. What would happen if America just pulled out right now?
If America and Israel stopped what they were doing, well, we already know. Let me go back. We already know. let's go back to last June. The 12-day war, Operation Rising Lion. Israel was systematically hitting assets of this regime. They were decimating assets of this regime. Then all of a sudden, boom, the call came, stop. So they have to stop because Trump said stop. Candace, it sounds like Trump is running the ship, not the other way around. Doesn't seem like Netanyahu is pulling the strings because Trump, they had planes literally on the
Right.
way to Iran to hit Khamenei, and they were told, turn around. Trump said it right publicly. He said, I called them,
Right.
turn around. Okay. So what happened? So the regime learned. The regime got outside support. They fortified. And then what happened? The next uprising, total brutality. Total brutality. So we already know what's going to happen. What they will do is they will then take their wrath as a wounded animal. They will get outside support to survive. And they will, meanwhile, the economy has collapsed. The inflation is beyond anything that we can imagine, where it literally takes a day's wage to buy one meal for the average Iranian. A shortage of water, shortage of electricity, and obviously just the will, just the demoralizing will. They will then take all of their vengeance out on the Iranian people inside. It will all be done in secret. And then they will take their vengeance out on the outside. They will then up their game because now that they've been exposed at this level, they will then go into the mode of activation. So I actually think that if we stop, they will probably activate their cells quicker, because that will then mean that because again, they know that they're so vulnerable that it's going to accelerate their activation of these terror cells, rather than right now. The quicker you decapitate the head, the more you isolate the individuals that are now. Can some carry out their attacks? Sure. But if you sever that support system, the better likelihood that you can uh, isolate and deal with those who are these sleeper cells within the borders of the United States or other countries. So to his point of we have nothing to gain, that's obviously not true, because there's a lot to gain. To his point that it's not working. You remember he said that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We know it's not. He always says it matter of fact. We know.
We know.
We know. Just like I know
Period.
that. Period. I know that that the president of Israel was on Paddo Island. Oh, sorry. I never said 24 hours later. I never said that. Well, we can play the clip where you said,
Gaslight,
no, I know.
gaslight.
Guys, I
Yeah.
saw the video.
Yeah.
We know. No, what we're seeing is we know that it's working because we're seeing a greater level of defections and the boldness of the Iranian people to remember, Trump said when this started, and his point of, well, there's no clear goal. No, there is a clear goal, because what heartened me, what was disheartening me, was I wasn't sure that if they're going to finally carry out a strike, I was concerned it would be some sort of a pinprick, of some sort of a sort of symbolic. We'll hit a couple of targets and then leave. When this happened, starting with Israel launching 200 of their fighter jets to Iran, and even though they had 200 jets, it's like they launched everything they had, and
Right.
then with the U.S. Doing their part and taking out Khamenei immediately, that sent the message that's very clear. And then Trump said it that very first night. Hey, Iranian people, this is your chance. Take
Right.
your government back. That's clear. What does that mean? That means
Right.
that they're not going to come out and say regime change, but they're
Right.
telling you this is the time for regime change. And then within the last few days, he came out and said the only deal that we're going to accept is total surrender. What does that tell you? So there is no longer any room for dealing with this regime. It's
Right.
either you got to take it down, or what will come at us will be far worse than anything we've seen, because now this regime has been exposed, the desperation has been exposed, and as you know, a wounded animal is sometimes the most dangerous animal. In this case, this is a wounded regime that is this close to actually, because collapse happens not by you kill all of them, right? Because you're not going to ever kill all of them.
Right.
Collapse happens when the morale
Right.
within the movement begins to crumble. And because right now they pick Mojtaba, the son of Khomeini. But if I was Mojtaba, I'd be like, this is a good time for me to go on vacation, because it seems like, whoever they're picking gets targeted. And
Yeah.
so I'm not sure if I want the position. And so
Right.
here's the question. What will be the lifespan of Mojtaba if this continues? So for the sake of the United States, for the sake of righteousness, for the sake of the Iranian people, for the sake of the promises the president made, at this point, they have to go and do it all the way. And by the way, just this morning, I saw one of his Truth Social posts, because I don't know if you saw the video of the Iranian soccer team, the women's soccer team. They were playing and they refused to sing to the Iranian national anthem as part of their protest against the regime. This is in Australia. And as they were leaving, there were many that the Iranians came out in support of the national team, the women's soccer team, and they were trying to stop the buses from leaving, because they know that if they go back to Iran, it is almost certain imprisonment or death for these players. Trump even comes out and says to the Australian government, "You're making a huge mistake. You need to give them asylum." And he said, "If you don't, we'll take them in."
Wow.
He just said that
That's
a little bit ago.
huge.
So that tells you how invested they are now. And I think that, again, not just because I'm from Iran or because I'm a Christian, I think for the sake of America, this is the right thing to do. That's moral
Yeah.
clarity that he is now demonstrating. So
Yeah.
the regime has got to go. The regime will go. The question is, will they burn the house down as they're going?
Right.
That's what they want to do. So to Tucker, if you leave them be and pull out, they will burn the house down, because they know they can't last. They know that the people inside of Iran will never stop. So if you don't do it now, a year from now, okay, so this time around they killed 35 to 90,000. A year from now, they'll kill 200,000, 300,000, because they won't stop,
Wow.
because they've been exposed. Now the world has seen it. You can't go back. You got to finish it.
Right. And what Tucker is saying now is so beyond irresponsible for him to even have this kind of opinion. It kind of exposes the lack of moral clarity I thought he had, whether he had it or not, and now he's being disingenuous and something else is causing his all of a sudden collapse in moral clarity and on these issues. I don't know what the cause of it. I mean, I certainly think there's a spiritual element there. If there's anything beyond that, who knows? But I'm glad Trump is calling this out. He even said recently in regards to Tucker and all of his criticism about against Trump and all of these things. Trump has finally came out and said Tucker has lost his way. He said, I know that a long time ago. So he's known this. I knew that a long time ago, and he's not MAGA. MAGA is saving our country. MAGA is making our country great again, and MAGA is America first. And Tucker is none of those things. And Tucker is really not smart enough to understand that. So I remember when Trump kind of was saying, Tucker, he's a friend and on all of these things, and it seems like every time Tucker goes around and stabs him in the back, so to speak, Trump is finally realizing, okay, this is gone way too far.
Yeah.
So I
But-
appreciate
You know what
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
concerned about, Jonathan? I'm concerned
Yeah.
about not Trump. I'm concerned about his connection, Tucker's connection to JD Vance
Yeah.
and to some of those Catholics that are inside this administration, because that's where this is. Again, this is so spiritual. This
Right.
is this sort of isolationism, pacifism. We don't deal with evil. We just pacify it. We all can get along. This mentality. Again, his trying to play down Sharia, Islam. It's not that bad. Oh, it's much better over there. Again, just with his ignorant so-called interview with Mike Huckabee, where he made the claim that the Christians in Qatar have it better than the Christians in Israel, or that there's more Christians in Qatar. But he's a liar, disingenuous, because why don't you come out and say what Huckabee said? Hey, those Christians are living in the Christian ghetto. They're not citizens of Qatar. They have no rights. They can only practice Christianity in the ghetto. If they were to proselytize any non-Christian, they would be they can get up to 10 years in prison in Qatar. They're mostly migrant workers. And by the way,
Right.
of the 400 plus thousand Christians in Qatar, over 300,000 are Catholic. So versus the Christians that live in Israel, 180 plus thousand of them that can be citizens, that can run for office, that can hold positions, that have that they can build churches. The only place that they can't proselytize would be, for example, on the Temple Mount, or if they actually go into Muslim held territories, right? If
Right.
Christians were to go into the so-called West Bank, or in Gaza, or in in the Golan Heights, yeah, they are going to get attacked by the Muslims.
Right.
So such lies and propaganda, and unfortunately, many people just clickbait. They just click on it, and they don't do their homework, and they don't know the history, because they take Tucker and Candace and these people as authoritative, as
Yep.
they have the knowledge. Surely they know, and because the way they communicate. Look, anybody can come out and come out as very confident and spew
Right.
lies,
Right.
and do it in a very authoritative manner.
Right. And what I love that you brought up the Huckabee interview, because one of the things that I would say that Huckabee did a pretty decent job, but in terms of his biblical understanding, it seems like eh, sadly Tucker, I think he's smart in who he chooses to interview. He'll interview theologians that are Christian Palestinianists, or the
Right, right.
pro Palestine, pro Islamic, but he won't interview dispensationalists for the life of me. He'll interview everyone who hates dispensationalists, everyone who critique dispensationalists, but when it comes to the other side, he'll interview politicians. He won't actually interview theologians. And my question to Tucker, he posed a question to Mike Huckabee, and I'll get your thoughts on this. But he said he asked Tucker about the from the river of Egypt to the Euphrates, the Bible, that's the biblical promise in Genesis 15. So would you say that they should take all of it? He kind of he tried to get Huckabee in a gotcha, and unfortunately Huckabee did
He
kind of
did.
fall for the
He did.
he fell for the trap, not
You're right.
understanding that. Right. So I guess I would love to get your response to that real quickly, and then we could talk about Pahlavi to
You got
end
it.
this episode.
No, I actually agree with you
Yes.
100% on that, Jonathan. I wish that Mike Huckabee would have said, no, I really am not going to answer that, or just come out and answer it properly and saying, look, that promise is a promise of a future time frame when the Lord himself is on the earth, and the Lord himself is going to divvy up, as God divvy up the land among the tribes of Israel. But when he tried to get him and say, do you think Israel should have that land? Huckabee said they should take it all. And that's the clip that they played, and go, there you go.
Christian
Israel is
Zionists.
there. Christian Zionism is there. That's what Christian Zionism is. They
Right.
don't want just the land in Israel. They want the entire Middle East. So that was, unfortunately, it was a really, like, he fumbled that. He really fumbled that answer. Tucker came across as the theologian, by the way he was trying to say, Genesis 15 and this land covenant. And he should have simply said, Mike Huckabee should have simply said, look, that is not for us. That is for the future. And that is not anything that any government is going to do. That is something that the Lord God is going to do upon his return, upon his reign. Now, I don't know where Huckabee's eschatology is. I don't actually
Yeah.
know, is he dispensational or not? But obviously, as someone, as those of us, like you said, who are, look, if we're counting on Mike Huckabee and Ted Cruz to be our defenders, we're in trouble. Like you
Right.
said, Tucker is too much of a chicken, too much of a coward to get Dr. Andy Woods on. And that's what I want to see. I want to see
Yeah.
Dr. Andy Woods against Tucker, and then ask the same question, Tucker. Ask
Yeah.
the same question about that whole issue of from the Euphrates River to the River Egypt, and understand that the answer has nothing to do with colonialism or Israel's might. It has all to do with the sovereignty of the living God upon the end of the tribulation and the division of the land. Because obviously, we know that there's going to have to be an absolute weakening or decimation of these Islamic areas for that land to be then given to the tribes of Israel
Right.
in the millennial kingdom. That's the way you should have answered it. It's not for now. That's future.
Yeah.
It's not for us. God will do that. If you had just said that, no, got you.
Right.
But now, oh,
Exactly.
you Christian Zionists, you guys are so filthy. Look at that. You just want to colonize for the Jews. The Jews want to take over all this land. Oh my gosh. And yet what has Israel done since their rebirth in 1948? They keep giving up land.
Giving up. Exactly.
They keep giving up land. Which doesn't work.
Right.
That's against God's word, because they're dividing the land. That doesn't go well for them. Hasn't gone well for them. Hasn't gone well for any
Yeah.
country. Remember the British Empire? Remember how big
Right.
the British
Exactly.
Empire was before they divvied up the land? And now they're down to what, 3 countries left?
Right.
At one point, the
Yeah.
British Empire was like 1/3 of the planet, and now they're down to 3 countries. And I believe it was, number one, because they divided the land of God. So if Israel
Right.
is a colonizing entity, they suck at it. They suck because they keep they keep giving up land and thinking that it's going to appease the Islamic world, and it never does.
Oh, I love that you bring that up. And I wish Huckabee would have brought that up too. Like, how many times have they given up? They given up the Sinai Peninsula. They could have had almost near what the Bible prophesies. Obviously, they were not going to have that until Jesus returns. Zechariah 14. If you guys don't understand, this is where Tucker gets it wrong too, right? Is he's asking the wrong questions. It's not a matter of does Israel want to take that land or not. It's a matter of are they going to take it or not, and what's going to be the driving force of that. That's the real question. And Tucker seems to be against not just Israel, but against the God of Israel, because if you don't want Israel to have that land eventually, you're saying that are you gonna be one of those people that fight against Jesus when he establishes it? He comes into Jerusalem, he fights against the nations. I'll read this quickly for Tucker and anyone who follows Tucker. Zechariah 14 talks about the last day's battle against Jerusalem. Behold, the day is coming for the Lord when the spoil taken from you will be divided among you. For I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city will be captured, the houses plundered, the woman ravished, and half of the city exiled, but the rest of the people will not be cut off from the city. Then the Lord will go forth and fight against those nations as when he fights on a day of battle. And then he talks about how he's going to stand on the Mount of Olives, he's going to split it, and then he's going to rule out of Jerusalem, and he's going to be king over all out of Jerusalem. And guess what's going to happen in that kingdom? Israel's going to have exactly the land that was promised in Genesis chapter 15. So the question that Tucker is asking is the wrong one. It's not, oh, does Israel want to take it or not? It's a matter of when. It's not a matter of if. Right? So
yeah, but Jonathan, whoever's advising him, like, who set him up with that question? I don't think that he's smart enough to have figured out that
right.
is whoever is advising him, whoever is behind him,
Yes.
had enough theology to say, this is a got you moment. This is how we're going to succor in Ambassador Huckabee, who was a pastor, was an ordained minister, blah, blah, blah. He knows he should, So yeah, so it's so suspicious in that it, to me, it wasn't just an accidental type of thing. That was a setup question, and
Absolutely.
and as such, you're absolutely correct. It's a lack of understanding of the recompense of God, because the Lord God is bringing His promise to fulfillment. This is why I keep telling people. In fact, I just started yesterday, Jonathan, a teaching in our church on the covenants of God. So many Christians are getting these covenants wrong. And now
Yeah.
with this covenantal theology, which is so warped, they're getting everything wrong. They're confused
Right.
the Mosaic with the Abrahamic. They confuse the old with, for example, when we say old covenant, the old covenant is simply the Mosaic covenant, because for it to be old and for something new to replace it, that means that it was temporary. It was not everlasting or eternal. The other covenants, the Abrahamic covenant, the Davidic covenant, the covenant of Noah,
Yeah.
those were all unconditional, one way, and everlasting covenants. God said, I'm not going
Yeah.
to destroy the world by flood again. That's forever and ever and ever. There
Right.
was no
Right.
condition put on it. The land covenant that he's talking about is one of the
Right.
three components of the Abrahamic covenant. Unfortunately, what many of our seminaries call the Palestinian land covenant. Where is that in the Bible that it says Palestinian land covenant? It simply said, here's the swath of land, both in Genesis 15 and also in in Deuteronomy and in Exodus. It repeats those boundaries, and it tells you that there's a boundary that has never been occupied by Israel. Never, ever, 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 ever. It's not even close.
Right.
And again, it just, the whole point of it was big bad Israel. Here you're sitting in their airport. You're in the country that you refuse to go out of the airport and claiming that you were detained. And you're sitting there, Jonathan, and you're making this false claim that and then Huckabee, of course, unfortunately, went right into it. They should go take it. Oh, when I saw that, I'm like, oh, they didn't just say that, did he?
Yeah, well, to your point that you mentioned earlier about someone Tucker having advisors, I think he does have a team, because if you read his Tucker Carlson Network articles, there are different people who actually talk about the issue, and in particular, that issue was something that was written about in his Tucker Carlson Network
Uh,
article
uh,
page
uh-huh,
from a different person, from a different
uh.
author that seemed to be much more theologically nuanced than Tucker. So I do believe that Tucker, he's receiving talking points from his covenant theologian advisors, and it seems
Yes,
like
yes,
that's why he's
yeah.
he never mentioned Genesis 15 prior to this conversation.
Never.
He was stuck on Genesis 12, and then he realized, oh
Yeah,
wait, there's another
yeah,
verse talking about the
yeah,
Abrahamic covenant,
yeah,
Genesis
yeah,
15. Well,
yeah,
Tucker, just keep reading. Eventually you'll
yeah.
figure out, oh, it's not just in Genesis, it's all over the Bible.
Yes,
So
exactly,
so
exactly. But
I encourage him to keep reading the
yeah,
Bible. That's all.
exactly. But that's the sad thing is that now with the likes of Kirk Cameron, I had Dr. Woods on my show a few months ago. We were talking about the Kirk Cameron thing, not only with Israel, because Cameron went off the deep end with Israel,
Yeah,
because of
right.
his Reformed theology and his preterism. He admitted he's a preterist or partial preterist. But then secondly, with his annihilationism, which is why I
Yes.
brought Dr. Woods on my show to talk about that. So look at where these guys are going. And so when you have that kind of camp, and again, I think I talked about this when I was on with you last time. I think we're underestimating the level of infiltration of these Nick Fuentes type of groypers within the Republican Party, within the political right, within the political right, woke right. Um, I think we're underestimating that they're having a pretty significant influence within these young people. See, here's the sad part. Charlie Kirk and Trump brought all these young people into the movement. It could have been a generational shift. And then the assassination of Charlie, now with Turning Point, eh, they're all over the place with this
Yeah.
ecumenicalism and their
Yeah.
interfaithism, which concerns me.
Yes.
And then with the infiltration of the Trump administration, all of that I think has been poisoned, which does not bode well for midterms or even 2028. And so at some point, you got to think, what team are they on? They're not on Team America. They're not America first. Trump is right in that sense.
Yes.
They are not MAGA. They're not America first. They are isolationist, and they are dominionist. That's what they are, right?
Right.
They're dominionist because of Tucker's Catholic influence and J.D. Vance. These guys are dominionist, and they're replacement theology. They're dominionist, and this is bad news.
Yeah, you're bringing up a really good point. I think regarding Tucker and all of these and the Groypers, Nick Fuentes, they're laying the foundation, I think, for the post-Trump Republican
Yeah.
era. And what
Yeah.
is Republicanism, quote unquote conservatism, going to look like post Trump? And I think they're playing the long game. They're not. I mean, Trump is in office. He's going to do what he's going to do, regardless of whether the pundits try to influence him or not. But so I think they're playing the long game, and they're trying to shape the narrative for the Republican Party post Trump. And it seems like there's. I mean, who comes after him? You got J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. They don't. I don't think they're going to be as, at least JD Vance, in my estimation, to your point, he's not going to be as have as much moral clarity and just say, go with what he thinks is correct on these certain issues. I think he is going to try and cater to the Republican, the pundits, the Tuckers of the world. I've already seen evidence of him doing that, and so I think they understand this. I think that they're playing the long game, and it's hopefully the Republican Party wakes up to that reality, because in 2028, who knows who that next candidate is going to be, and how anti-Israel and how bad he gets things wrong in the Middle East. Who knows what that person's going to look like in 2028.
I agree. I agree. And that's why right now the situation with Iran is so important. You were asking before we went on air about the concern that I would have for the president coming out last week and saying that he would need to have total input into who the next
Yes.
leader was. So
Yes.
in one sense, I'm glad they're recognizing that within this regime, unlike Venezuela, unlike what they did in Venezuela, that model won't work here, because in Venezuela, they left the power structure intact and took the head. Now,
Right.
that's like presuming that there isn't corruption in the rest of the government.
Right.
So I don't think that's going to go well, possibly. In Iran, that won't work, because this isn't just about corruption. There's corruption within this regime, but it's ideological, right? It's actually theological in the way
Yeah.
they're governed. So there is no moderate within this clerical structure. None. Doesn't exist. One here, one here. This one may look a little bit more on the surface, but at the end of the day, they're all the same. So you got to take it all down. Okay, so now, who would be the next? Who
Right. That was going to
would
be my
be?
next question to you. Yeah.
Because, Jonathan, I've watched so many videos. I've talked to so many Iranians. I was just visiting with my spiritual father last weekend, who's from Iran, and they have a lot of access to information coming out of Iran, but also other parts of the Iranian community and other parts of the world. It is like 95% supporting Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah. Nobody that he knows of is even talking about this other group that is called MEK. They don't go by that name anymore. They go by the National Council of the Resistance of Iran, or sometimes they flip it to Iran Resistance. This NCRI is what they go by. But what they really are is a group that has been actually around for the last 65, 70 years. MEK stands for Mujahideen Khalq, and that means the society's jihadist. The word mujahideen is where you actually get the word jihad. It actually, the word comes from within that word, meaning those are the fighters in the cause of Allah. So, why am I concerned? Well, when you watch, for example, let's say Fox News, or Newsmax or OAN or some of these entities supposedly on the right. They're interviewing. Okay, so have some of them had Pallavi on? Yes. Well, not Newsmax. I haven't seen Pallavi on Newsmax, but Fox has had Pallavi on a few times. I just saw him on Laura Trump's show. Mario Bartolo, whatever her, she's had him on a few times. But they have interviewed members of this MEK group multiple times as supposedly the opposition, the Iranian opposition. Mike Pompeo, Rudy Giuliani, Mike Pence, certain members of the U.S. military are supporting MEK. Now, what is MEK? If I could just expand on that really quick.
Absolutely, please.
MEK is an entity that in the 60s was inside Iran, and they're a Marxist communist group. So they're Muslims, but their philosophy of government is not a theocratic rule under Sharia, but a Marxist communist rule, if that can make sense. So they packaged Islam, a Muslim, but I'm a moderate Muslim, which again, that can't happen. And they packaged it with socialism, Marxism. Now, just for people to understand, when Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini was brought into Iran in 1979, at the help of the U.S. government, at the help and support of Jimmy Carter at that time, who betrayed the Shah, turned on the Shah, sent his generals to Iran to warn the Iranian army, do not resist the people in this revolution. Support the people, whoever they pick. Do not support the Shah. Do not try to keep him in power. And as a result, half of the army stood down. The Shah left the country. Khomeini comes in. Now, what was Khomeini's platforming? 100% like Zoran Mamdani. It was like Zoran Mamdani coming in. The difference was Mamdani is a younger guy, good-looking guy, smiles a lot. Khomeini was this old, decrepit, ashen. He's from India. These guys aren't even Iranian. They're not Persian. He was Indian.
Wow. Yeah.
And they came in and they took the country over. So MEK worked to undermine the Shah in the 60s and 70s, infiltrate universities, the media, other institutions, and ultimately helped with the overthrow. Then what happened is when the Islamic theocracy was established within the first year, guess who the Muslims turned on? The Marxist. So MEK became outlawed. Some of their members were arrested, jailed, and killed. Many of them fled to Iraq. They set up their base of operation in Iraq, and during the Iran-Iraq war, they worked with Saddam Hussein to fight against Iranians and were responsible for killing Iranians. Nobody in the Iranian diaspora, when I say nobody, I'm talking about, again, 90+%, and 90+% of the Iranian people, they will never support MEK. MEK coming into Iran, if this regime collapses, would be worse than what they have, because now you think that you're better. You think that you have freedom. And oh, by the way, they vehemently hate Israel. They would be like no different than Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. They hate Israel. They would not be an ally of Israel. They would be at odds with the Arab countries, whereas Pahlavi has said, we're going to come in, immediately sign a Cyrus Accord with Israel.
Yeah.
We're going to have diplomatic relations with the Arab neighbors, Arab Muslim nations.
Right.
That's what I'm concerned about, because I don't know how the U.S. president or this administration could say with a straight face, we're not sure who the Iranian people are supporting.
The fact that is even a statement tells you that there's a lot of moral clarity in going and attacking the regime, but not as much moral clarity on who the next leader of Iran should be. When you're articulating it makes it so abundantly clear that Pahlavi he should be he should be the man for the job.
And Pahlavi has said, I just listened to another interview with him just about 3 days ago. He said again, I do not want to be the long-term leader. I simply am taking up the mantle because I've been asked. The Iranian people are calling my name. In fact, the Iranian people have died. Think about that. I mean, can you imagine if people died lifting up your name? And so thousands of young people died for the name of Pahlavi. And he said, all I want to do is come in and lead the transition. All I want to do is come in and get to the point where the Iranian people can go to the ballot box and choose for themselves who is going to be their next leader and their form of government. Because there's still debate about, is this going to be a republic? Is it going to be a constitutional monarchy? Is it going to be a pure democracy? Lord help me, I hope it's not a pure democracy, and because that's horrible.
Right.
In my opinion, a constitutional monarchy is the best option here, where you have a prime minister running the country, but you have a crown, you have a monarchy that's the symbol of the country, kind of like England, where you have
Yeah.
the queen and that they're kind of the symbol. But day-to-day stuff, you got a prime minister, a parliament, but that's what's at stake right now. And I don't even know if the president himself doesn't have moral clarity. I think the advising that's going on is he's being told by those within the administration that will never support Pahlavi, because there are still remnants 47 years later. There are still remnants of foreign policy in the United States foreign policy that mirror the foreign policy pre-Shah, who didn't like the Shah then, and they don't like the son of Shah now. And no matter what he does, they're not going to support him. So if they're advising the president and telling him things like, "Oh, this guy doesn't have support," where have you been, Mr. President? Have you watched February 14th? Almost 2 million Iranians outside the country came out, all across Europe, in North America, to support Reza Pahlavi as the transitional leader. Where have you been? This is clear. There's not even a close. MEK had a rally in Paris. They mustered up maybe 10,000 people, and Paris is their base of operation. Albania and Paris is their base of operation for all their little Marxist thugs. Levy had a rally in Munich, 250,000. The rally in Toronto brought out 570,000 people. It's not even a race.
Right.
So we got to pray.
Right. Oh man, that is such a huge prayer. Not just, the toppling of the regime, but the next the prayer that Pahlavi, he is the transitional leader for Iran, so that it moves away from this MEK, the MEK party that you're mentioning, and sadly, that the fact that that's even a question. I guess my question to you, to wrap up this episode, would be, what are the prophetic implications? I know, Pahlavi, that would be such a good thing for the Middle East, for Iran, for the Persian people and their relationship with Israel. What would be the prophetic implications if MEK became the transitional leading party, or not in transitional leading party, just the leading party, as this regime gets toppled?
I think that's a great question. I think it has the potential of accelerating that false peace, because if MEK comes in, if they are installed, which again, I can't even fathom that the Iranian people will tolerate that, because they know inside Iran, they know who MEK is. You can put a lipstick on a pig, it's
Mm,
still a pig. They
right.
know that this group NCRI, they relabeled. I mean, they were actually, I don't know if you know this, MEK was listed as a terrorist organization under the State Department until Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton removed them
Wow.
when they were in power. Lots of money being
Yeah.
thrown around. Most of these guys like Pompeo and these guys, they're paid big fees, Giuliani, big fees to come and speak at their rallies. So they got lots of money to throw around. But but even if that happened, MEK coming in could accelerate the false peace, because there's no way that MEK comes in and the Trump administration would support them being hostile to Israel. So what I could see is they come in and I think Pahlavi genuinely would want actual peace with Israel. I think
Yeah.
Pahlavi, by saying we would sign not just the Abraham Accords, but the Cyrus Accords, from King Cyrus in the Bible,
Right.
I think he genuinely believes that.
Yeah.
Now
That's what it
that
seems like.
also may lead to that false sense of peace, because I've argued Ezekiel 38 cannot happen where Israel is reborn
Yes.
in a nation and these nations gather against it. In verse 11, it says that Israel is in unwalled villages and they are in security, no bars, no, you know. So, well, okay, think about it, Jonathan. As long as this regime right now is standing in Iran, you think Israel is ever going to be in unwalled villages?
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Never, never, ever, ever. They will never let their guard down as long as you have the murderous regime supporting Hamas and Hezbollah to their south and north. He's supporting now the ISIS element within Syria. They've shifted their support from Assad to now trying to work with Jolani and the ISIS element. And of course, we know Iran works closely with Turkey, and Turkey prophetically is going to be part of that coalition.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, Turkey, as in the nations that were listed in Ezekiel 38,
Yeah, and the Gog and Magog.
with the Gog Magog scenario, where it mentioned Togarmah, Beth Togarmah, Tubal, Meshach,
Yes.
which are regions that today Turkey encompasses. So I think MEK coming in could accelerate the false peace, because I could see them claiming that they are going to join the Abraham Accords and then flipping and going along with Rosh, potentially Russia, Turkey. So that is a possible scenario, versus if Pahlavi comes in, I do think there will be a general pause in the hostilities. And at some point down the road, I do think that there's obviously going to be an element of Iran or Persia that's going to join that coalition. But as I mentioned last time,
Yeah.
when I was on with you, I'm not sure what the boundary of Persia is, because the
Yeah.
Persia of Ezekiel was 10, 15 times bigger than the Persia of today.
Right. Right.
So that's prophetically something that's at stake here, because we know ultimately that those nations are going to gather against Israel at some point here in the future. And, um, you know, it's hard to see that the people of Iran, I don't think will turn on Israel. It's the
Right.
government, whatever government is there, that I think will lead the people to turning to join that coalition, turn against Israel.
Yeah. Oh man, so many things to pray about, especially for the Iranian people. If you're a believer and you're watching this, pray for the Iranian people. Pray for just the whole situation that's happening out there. There's so much at stake, and but as you mentioned previously, the underground church, the church, and the Christians are booming in Iran amongst the people. Christianity is booming, and God is doing a work amongst the people over there. And how great would it be that this Iranian regime collapses and the gospel is able to be spread even much more rapidly for the people? That is also, as Christians, something that we should desire, that the gospel can be free to be spread amongst the people there. So it's absolutely a huge prayer that things turn out in favor of that, with the toppling of this regime.
I agree 100%, and that's ultimate. I'm glad we're coming to that point, because that's ultimately what this is about. Is ultimately, we know nations rise, nations fall. Prophecy is going to be fulfilled, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, souls are the most important thing. And
Yeah.
I believe that, first of all, I know there's people like me who are just longing for the opportunity to go back to Iran, to lead teams to Iran, to share the gospel openly. Number
Yeah.
two, when you take the shackles off of this underground church that is the fastest growing numerically on the planet, statistically speaking, with the potential of up to 5 million Christians right now in Iran out of 92 million,
Wow.
that explosion of now it going from underground to being overt could lead to a a window of time where the Lord is allowing the gospel not only to go through all throughout Iran, because let's not forget Jeremiah 49 and the
Mm,
Elam prophecy that it's got to be
right.
fulfilled. Unlike what
Right.
Amir Sephardi said, I don't agree with Amir Sephardi. I think Bill
Yeah.
Silas is closer to where I believe in this, that is not yet fulfilled, the Jeremiah 49 prophecy about Elam. But uh, imagine, Jonathan, that now the shackles are off, the underground church can become overt, and for a short window, there's no restrictions. Now, that's not going to happen if MEK takes over.
Right. Right. Right.
That's not going to happen if MEK takes over. They're going to continue. They're not going to allow the true religious uh, freedom that the Shah has acknowledged there, because he knows, and he's said it publicly, the son of the Shah, I should say, that Christianity is the fastest growing religion in Iran. So not only can I see the explosion, but think about this. I think Iran can then be a sender of missionaries to the region, because that's what they long to do, not just to reach their own people, but to reach the entire Islamic world. And I think Iran becomes the South Korea of 20 years ago, where, remember,
Yeah.
South Korea for a while was sending out more missionaries per capita than the United States.
Yeah.
So
And
that's what our, yeah,
I'm half Korean too, so I
yeah,
totally yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. The heart behind Iran and how powerful God can use any, like, God is in the business of using small nations and people that are not as powerful and using them to be a force for Christianity. And South Korea is one of those examples. Iran could be one of those examples.
I
What a
believe so.
amazing thing that would be.
Yeah, I believe so. That's my prayer, that in all of this, however the geopolitics lays out. Now, obviously, we know, look, the gospel is going to go forth, and obviously Christians around the world, including Iran, have been propagating the gospel under great persecution and great hardship and the risk of death. That's going to
Yeah.
continue. That will not
Yeah.
stop. But sometimes God gives those windows, those
You're right.
open windows of, like, here's an opportunity. You may have 5 years or whatever. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I can see, because again, I've said this to everybody that I've had interviews with. A free Iran is an Islamic free Iran, because they have rejected Islam, and all the statistics bear this out. The number of mosques that have shut down, the very small percentage, only about 32% of Iranians not even identify as Muslim now, compared to 98% before 1979. So every metric is saying the Iranian people have rejected Islam and are choosing either secularism or Christianity. Now, obviously, our prayer is for those who are choosing secularism, that it's just a means to an end, because many Iranians went from rejecting Islam to believing in nothing to then having their eyes open to the gospel. So that's our prayer. But at the end of the day, put aside all the geopolitics, that would be the most incredible opportunity, is that it could shift for a window the entire Middle East and the 1040 window. Yeah, and here's the other thing. Iranian Christians are not going to propagate this ecumenical interfaithism that is within missions today to the Muslim world, where, oh,
Right.
we're all Abrahamic, we all believe in the same God. No, because Iranian Christians like myself, they have no confusion that the God of the Bible is not the false God of Islam. That the
Yeah.
false God of Islam is ultimately Satan. It's demonic. It's an antichrist spirit. So they're not going to come and sugarcoat the gospel to these Arab Muslims in the region. They're going to propagate it with boldness. And that's why I think it becomes a sending nation for a period of time. If, Lord willing, this regime can collapse, and, you got to go in and pluck out the roots of this, this demonic spirit that has been in this nation for 47 plus years, 50 plus years, actually, when you look at the infiltration before the Shah. um, it would be glorious. for a window of opportunity for the Lord. So that's what we're praying for ultimately. Ultimately, Lord, may your gospel go forth and may all hear the good news.
Amen. Oh wow, what a powerful force the Iranian people would be, the Christian Iranian people would be. Thank you so much for sharing that. And uh, what we covered today, there were so many good things. We talked about how it is America first. That what we're doing here in Iran is America first. The biblical implications, the prophetic implications, and what it can do for the gospel if this Iranian collapse ends in the right direction. So, Pastor Shahram, I just thank you so much for joining us again. This was such a wonderful episode. And for those of you that want to find his ministry, you can find it. It's called Truth and Love Ministry. Can you spell it out? It's TIL, and
Yes,
it's ministry.com.
Yes,
Right.
sir. TIL for Truth in Love Ministry.com. And if I could just add one quick thing, it just popped in my head
Mhm.
because your show, right? You're talking about supporting Israel and the Jewish people. I want to make it very clear. I think a free Iran also immediately will bring millions of Zionists into the camp for Israel to support
Wow.
Israel. Right now, they're there. They just can't say anything. Right now, they're there. You're seeing it in the diaspora. That's why you see a lot of these rallies. You see Iranians with Persian flags, and you see Jews
Yeah.
supporting them with their Israeli flags, or vice versa. And I
Yeah.
don't know if you saw this last week. After the strikes happened, Iranians were going to the Israeli embassies throughout Europe and putting flowers and saying, "Thank you, Prime Minister Netanyahu. Thank you,
Wow.
Israel, for putting yourself on the line to liberate us." 2,500 years ago, it was the Persians that God used to liberate the Jews through the story of
Yes.
Purim and Esther. This attack happens 2 days before the start of Purim, and then
Right.
now it's flipped. So for the sake of Zion, for the sake of Israel, for the sake of the Jewish people, every person that supports that should be praying right now for a free Iran, because that will guarantee 100% further support for the right of the Jewish people to the land.
Amen. Wow, what a powerful way to end this episode. Thank you again, Pastor Strong, for
Thank you,
your heart
brother.
for this issue and for the clarity, the biblical clarity, the moral clarity. I just thank you so much for all those things, and God bless you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me on. To your amazing audience, God bless you guys. And until next time, I'm so grateful. May the truth go forth, and may God be glorified in all this.